All right, so plan last week was to get a gait analysis done. Unfortunately, that didn't work out. Back is feeling much better this week. I'm loosened up, and I just got here getting ready to head in, and we're going to get this thing started. I'm really excited about this because it's going to help us inform a lot of decision making on really everything moving forward, because especially from a longevity standpoint, I'm going to run and perform as well and for as long as I can do it well. So if I catch anything that I'm lacking in early on, it's much easier to make these corrections than later on down the road. So let's see what happens.
Your form was great walking.
I practiced a whole lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're all set.
I am going to put it with the V up. And
I was kind of wondering. I was
On
like,
there.
yeah. My wife one time was just like, try this wax thing.
and you're like,
And she
nope.
fucked me up.
I bet she did.
And then I come to find out she was looking to see because she had never done it before.
You were.
So unfortunately, I'm not going to use the video and audio that I've got from Jody giving me the results and kind of going through the feedback. There was just too much background noise. Would have been really annoying. And to pull that noise out is far beyond my editing capabilities as it currently stands. So I'm going to put up the feedback and like the results right up here. And I'm going to kind of go through what we talked about, her feedback, and kind of what was going on during the test here. So the DorsaVi unit, which is how we did the gait assessment, those are the little sensors you saw her put on my shins. Was looking at three things, and there's two of them that I was particularly like interested in / paying attention to the most. So there's IPA, there is initial peak acceleration. Has a lot to do with like force. That wasn't the one that I was mostly curious about. So there was ground reaction force, which had to do with like what kind of force I was putting through my feet or foot in prosthetic. And the biggest thing I was looking at on this one was going to be its relative left to right. One of the biggest things I assumed that I was going to learn about that I either needed to improve a lot on, I was doing well, was symmetry. As an amputee, as a prosthetic user, that is the hardest piece of the puzzle, and that is also going to be a huge sign of progress, and it's a very good objective measure of, am what I'm doing truly working? So that was the ground reaction force, and then ground contact time. So how long my feet were on the ground. And so what we did is I ran for 10 minutes. 10 minutes, put the treadmill at a 10-minute pace. And one of the goofy pieces is I don't usually run on a treadmill. You can count on one hand the number of times I've run on a treadmill as an amputee. And that was a little bit a part of the learning curve. So now I'm kind of going through here and just looking at my results. What was really cool was that my ground reaction force was almost completely symmetrical. Again, like I said, I got broken down into 5 2-minute laps. It was all one run. The symmetry, so the difference between left and right, my first 2 minutes was literally less than 1%. I was at 3% on the second lap, a little bit more than that on the third lap. At this point, I'm finally starting to get warm, and this is the point where she started giving me a couple cues to work on, and that is where then so lap number 4, the first one she cued me on, my symmetry went to 0.5% and 0.3% for the last 2 laps. So the main cue she was giving me.
What I want you to think about for the next 2 minutes is your knee drive on your left is just a little lower compared to your right. So your right's doing a good job of coming through. Your left is a little low. Okay. Try to just pick those up. Yep. Lead with your knees.
That would relate to this was knee drive. I was coming up short on my left knee, and that's really easy to do for a number of reasons. I don't have as much proprioception to cue that. I have a device, a foreign device hanging off of my anatomy. And then I've got that sleeve that I wear, which will also restrict that movement. So that became a big focal point in these last 4 minutes of the run. That really showed up on ground contact time a little bit more, but I started off in good shape and got better when it came to the ground reaction force. Like I said, IPA wasn't one that I was looking at dramatically. I was not all over the place here, but I was pretty close all the way through. But like as I'm warming up, I was biased towards the right side, and in the middle, those middle 2 laps, it became biased to my prosthetic side. And again, I'm just trying to find the treadmill still at this point. And then by the end of it, it was more biased again back towards the right. She said that that's something that she definitely expects as a prosthetic user. And there was one cool thing. She did say that this was probably the most symmetrical ground reaction force she's ever assessed, especially on a first one. And then ground contact time. So that was the second cue she gave me, was to try to keep my blade on the ground longer, which is something I definitely know. That is something I coach when I coach other amputees to run. I absolutely am coaching them to stay on their blade. Don't work to get off of it. Again, the treadmill was a little bit goofy, but if we don't use the treadmill, she can't really watch me run and get the eyes. I'm not just interested in what the sensors say. This is really cool objective data, but I wanted her actual assessment of my technique and form. She is a former collegiate runner, real sharp. I really liked working with her, definitely trusted what she had to say. So my 2 cues became drive that left knee, stay on your blade. Don't get off of your blade. So to start, I had a big disparity in my ground contact time. Again, I was just feeling really a little bit out of my depth, or a little bit out of my practice with that treadmill. But in the end, it's good. It highlights where my weak points are, because my weak points are going to be amplified. So right there, like in the first one, it is almost 2-1. And the second lap, 2 to 4 minutes, again, we're 2-1. Third lap, 2-1. Not a whole lot of improvement on this one until she gives me that cue. Hey, this is what I want you to focus on, the knee drive, and the knee drive made it easier to stay on my blade. So I went from 2-1, and then as I get into the last 2 minutes, we move from literally like 100% difference in time, ground contact time, to only a 20 some odd percent disparity between the two. For a prosthetic user, that she's like, that's pretty freaking even. So that was pretty cool. So while I didn't really get a huge deficiency highlighted, but I got a lot of validation on how I've been running, how I'm working. The biggest thing I need now is simply practice. I need to be practicing my running, which I was already on that page, but it's cool that I can kind of go out and continue to reinforce what I was doing versus having to change my mindset around how I felt it, viewed it, and that I'm on the right track. But as well, the things that have allowed me to have this symmetry are the same things that I have been trying to communicate to other amputees. The ones that I work with, they operate under the same sort of method, so that also again validates the information and direction I'm trying to give others. So that is the basic gist of our running analysis. All in all, a great experience. Here in a handful of weeks, I'm going to go back and check in again and see what I've improved on, and we'll go from there.
All right, just chewed up my first longer run since my back got all tweaked. I've done some shorter stuff. That was the first time I got back on my 40-minute run plan. Nice and easy, felt pretty good. This week's book, working through my way through Born to Run, seemed like a wildly logical choice. And what was really cool about this one, after doing the gait analysis yesterday, was I had a couple cues to work on, and the cues I was given was to be focusing on my left knee to make sure I'm driving my left knee, which is my prosthetic side, so it's really easy to go short there. And then just simply trying to be on my blade for longer, which is something I pretty much try to work on anyway. Those are just two good cues I'm working on. So it's 40 minutes of practice there. Feels good.
So to kind of wrap up the week of training, obviously we did that gait analysis, and there's a small part of me that kind of was hoping to find this big missing link. You know, like, oh man, there's this big deficiency. Work on that, and everything's going to go through the roof. I wasn't afraid of that. In fact, I was kind of hoping that that might be the case. Like, there's some big missing piece that I'm not doing. Instead, I got a lot of validation on how hard I've worked to build symmetry between my sound side and my residual side, which is also very cool, because I do believe that some of the concepts and mindset around training can help a lot more than myself to get a very objective view of that, and a very important metric, which is, again, that symmetry left to right that I got in that gait analysis. It says a lot for the work that I've done, so that's always cool. But it also says a lot in the way that I'm working towards longevity in all of this. I'm not trying to be an athlete for the next 5 years. I'm trying to be an athlete at some level until I'm in the ground. So that was pretty cool. So using that gait analysis, we'll move forward there. Strength training went really well this week. Definitely the most overall volume that I've done in a handful of months. Definitely felt it. Recovery metrics looked like I need to get a little better at recovering from this. But that's what I'm going to have to do. I'm going to have to hit these points where I'm stepping up volume in my training, and then my body has to adjust, and then I add again, and we just continue to stack progress like that. So that was, again, another really encouraging piece of the week. Going into this next week, I am going to be doing a 10K trail run I'm really excited about. I went ahead and decided to do this one because I think it's a really good lead-up race for what I've got coming up here with Bryce Canyon. I live in like just outside of St. Louis on the Illinois side. There's not a lot of big climbs to go find. This race has got over 800 feet, so it's a good step in that direction. Again, I'm doing a 30K that's got, I believe, around 2,000 feet worth of climbing. So this 800 and change will be a good marker. I'm not going there to try and crush a time. I'm trying to crush execution and test some things out nutritionally, preparation, equipment, and that sort of stuff. So that's the big what we're getting into with the 10K next week. And then in terms of running, knowing now that I've got a solid pattern that I need to just continue to develop, my biggest goal now is to get better at lowering my heart rate while I run. So far, I've followed the plan. I'm able to nasal breathe the whole time. Very little mouth exhale, but I'm still finding myself high 140s on the average on heart rate. And I would love to kind of work on the skill of getting that a little bit lower, especially like the number I'm going to use is what a lot of use, which is the Maffetone method, and to calculate like your aerobic heart rate, and you're trying to stay under that. Right now I'm staying right around that line, a little bit above, a little bit below. For right now, the biggest thing I'm going to work on is learning and developing my ability to get that a little bit lower. I would love to be able to do the same running I'm doing at or around 135 instead of 145 to 150. That's the progress I'm chasing next. It's not more distance, it's not more pace. It is going to be that skill. And I see a few different things. One, it's continuing to refine technique. It's more efficiency with my running, with my actual stride and gait technique. That's going to be one way to lower that technique without giving away speed, so more efficiency. Continuing to emphasize my breathing and just simply actually developing more control and running at a lower pace, if that, like, because that's what that's going to need to start off as, is being able to run a lower pace with the exact same mechanics. It may seem counterintuitive, but I fully trust that this is the best path, and in the long run, the fastest path to running faster, more efficiently, and getting into these bigger, longer races that I'm eyeing. So that's the week of training. I'm just excited to get into this next one. It's going to be a really fun test run next week with that 10K. The week after that, I'm going to be rucking 50 miles up in Green Bay. I can't wait to bring you both of those. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Please hit the like button, and we can get this thing growing, and we can get some more people on board, and I can bring you better, cooler content in the future. Thanks, guys. Bye.